All right, and good evening. We are here with a PMDG MD-11, one of the best planes available for FSX. And I've been really fortunate to have a lot of friends and a lot of people I know involved in the aviation industry and have spent a lot of time with me trying to teach me, as hard as that might be. They've been trying to teach me how to fly the MD-11 and go through all the procedures and all the flows and how the plane really works. So I wanted to make sure I could share that with you guys. Now, I don't know everything about this plane. I don't really consider myself an expert. I consider myself pretty good with it, but by no means an expert. I'm sure some of the things I do here tonight and in subsequent videos are going to be wrong, and I want you guys to let me know because we're all really learning this together. So if I do something wrong, I want to correct it, correct any of the videos I have, and so that we can work as a community to get this thing right and fly the MD-11, because I know you guys enjoy it as much as I do. So I'm sitting here in Memphis. I've got Memphis add-on that is just phenomenal. I've spent a lot of time on this ramp, and this thing is pretty close to reality. So really kind of fun to see this guy here. One thing I don't like is, you notice I'm not really where I'm supposed to be. That's just something they're working on to get that fixed. But when you jump seat or when you fly this plane, this is really what it's going to be like when you show up. When you show up, it's probably going to be empty. The loaders are probably going to be there, which he's sitting over here. Stairs are going to be sitting over here. I'm going to be going through a lot of my steps that I've learned. This is either in my notes or in some of our manuals or some other things that I have, and I'm just going to be kind of reading through a lot of these. If I get kind of boring, I'm sorry. I'm just going to try to cover these in as much detail as possible. And I'm going to do this from the captain's perspective. So there's a checklist for the first officer, there's a checklist for the captain, and I'm going to primarily be doing this from the captain's checklist. So as the captain gets to the plane, the one thing he's going to check is if there's any maintenance personnel working if on the plane still. If there's any flight control surfaces not clear or anything that's being done by maintenance, he's not going to pressurize the hydraulic system until he gets a clearance from maintenance. So he's going to look around and make sure the nose gear is secure. It's usually going to have a tether on it, but it's going to have some way, tug, tow bar, weight trailer, some method to have that tow bar down. Pitot covers have been removed. The wheels are secured. So the left and the right main gears are chocked. The center gear is never chocked. It actually moves quite a bit while they're loading and unloading the plane. Never chock the center gear. Very good advice. Flight control surfaces are all clear. He's going to note and observe the flap and slat positions. So if they're not where they're supposed to be, he's going to notice that. The main gear door, he's going to look is closed, and the APU exhaust intake area is clear. Alright, now we're going to move on to the interior of the aircraft, and we're going to run a safety check. And the aircraft safety check consists of a couple things here. First off, we're going to check the aircraft maintenance log. It's going to be back sitting over here. We're going to check the aircraft maintenance log, see if there's anything we need to be aware of, and then we're going to lay it in the first officer's seat so that it's there for him when he comes and looks at it. So, the thing we're going to remember is we're going to remember 414. 4 overhead. Emergency power switch is off. My fuel dump switch is off. Both windshield wipers are off. We're going to look at our gear handle, make sure it's correct with our lights. We're going to make sure our parking brake is off. Now this one is hard to do in the sim because you got to have it on for a lot of the external loading applications and scenery and so forth to work properly. But normally the parking brake is going to be off. We're going to make the flap, or make sure the flap and slat handle agrees with what we saw outside. Fuel levers are off and radar is off. And again, in this aircraft, our radar is not simulated, but that's what we would do. So let's run through and make sure it says expected. So actually, before I do that, that should be. There's a lot of talk about, how is the aircraft configured when I get to it. I always wonder that, is the aircraft dark? Is everything shut off? How is it when I as a pilot get to the aircraft? And this is pretty much how you're going to find the aircraft. The IRUs are going to be off. The cargo temperature, it can be set anywhere. Who knows where it is? Generally, you are going to be on external power, and your battery is going to be off, because if the external power for some reason gets disconnected, you don't want to drain the battery down. So you're going to be in this configuration. Your temperatures, they could be set on anything that the guys before left. As a cargo airline for these guys, you're probably going to be fueled when you show up. They've already taken care of it earlier, and you're ready to go. So your cabin pressure system's already going to be in auto, and your defog is going to be off. And that defog's going to be off. You know that's going to be off because in your checklist, when you shut down, you've got to turn that off. That's one of the checklist items. So that should be set correctly. So that will be off, and all your NIs should be off as well. So this one just actually specifically says off. Your emergency lights are going to be off. These are going to be off. On your lights, it's going to be, generally you're going to find them off, on, off. So 2 off, 2 on, 2 off. At daytime, your logo light may not be on, but generally your nav lights are always going to be on when it's sitting on the ramp. So off, on, off. You can find this panel in any number of configurations when you walk up. They could have left data, waypoints, airports on, set how, any and every way possible. But you are going to find that your ground spoilers should be off and locked. You should find your flap and slat handle up. You should find your flaps at 15, and your aircraft in general good, condition of how you'd want it left for the next guy. If you were the next guy, how you'd like that left. So, all right, let's run back real quick and do our interior safety check. So as I said, the aircraft maintenance log is checked. I showed you the 414, so that's the emergency power switch is off. Fuel dump switch, we're going to make sure it's off, and on the side here we should see the little slash marks. Our windshield wipers are off and off. Our landing gear lever is down and in. Parking brake, again, should be released, but in this one it's going to be set just because of how the sim works. Our flap and slide handle agree with what we see outside. Our fuel levers are off, and our weather radar is off, which we know is going to be here. All right. So that takes care of our safety check. So now we're going to continue to the flight deck inspection. So we're going to check and make sure our aircraft publications are stowed. So we've got the right aircraft publications. We're going to check our circuit breakers. So we're actually going to come up here and we're going to run our hands over all of these circuit breakers and make sure they're as expected. If there are some that are going to be popped out, there's actually going to be a little red ring on it to let us know that it's supposed to be that way. So we've got the panel here overhead. We've got the side panel that we're going to run over. And we've got the rear panel. We're going to run over those and check them all. This aircraft actually has a panel by your feet on both sides. They control some of the lights here. Most pilots don't check those, but if you have an issue with lights, there is a panel here and there is a panel here. Alright, we never reset any of the trip circuit breakers until we've had maintenance. We're on the ground and we've got an issue. Okay, it says here one reset of any other trip circuit breaker may be attempted only after maintenance has determined the cause. So, and we never ever reset any trip fuel pump or hydraulic auxiliary pump circuit breakers. Alright, so now we're just going to walk around the cabin here, and again, we don't have a lot of the stuff in the sim, but we're going to check the right observer life vest, the right observer interphone, the right observer oxygen. We're going to set the cockpit air vents as desired here. We're going to set the aft observer oxygen, the aft observer life vest. We're going to check and see if our gear pins and our nose steering bypass pin are checked and stowed. Back here in this compartment, we're going to have several compartments up in here on the real aircraft, but we're going to check that our dangerous goods gloves are checked and stowed. Our demonstration life vest is stowed. Our protective breathing equipment is checked and stowed. There's actually a little indicator on it that should be blue, and we're going to check that. Our exemption kit is stowed. We should have a first aid kit in here. Our left observer oxygen is here. Our left observer life vest is stowed. We should have a fire extinguisher. We have portable oxygen cylinders that are here, and we check that our needle is full, and we check that they are in the demand position on the regulator. We should have a crash axe, and then we're going to check in the back here for the captain's life vest, which is going to be on the back of the seat, and the first officer's life vest. And then we're looking to make sure we have our escape ropes. We can look through the window and we have our captain's escape rope and our first officer's escape rope and life vest. Alright, now the next checklist we are going to do on our flight deck prep. Let me get back here. It's got a little gouge. Be faster. So we're going to check that our battery is on. We're going to evaluate the electrical and apply as necessary. We're going to do a fire test. Alright, if we have DC power only and we have not established electrical, we'll only get our fire detection. We won't get a full test, so we'll have to go back and do that again. If we need our APU, we're going to start it. We're going to check our serviceables and make sure our engine oil is at least 17 quarts within 30 minutes of shutdown. We're going to check our status page. Alright, if we had a HUD, we would test it along with our annunciator lights and initialize ACARS. Now, we don't have ACARS on these airplanes. The pilot that I work with today, he initializes his ACARS way up here at the very beginning after he applies electrical. ACARS sends them the initial weight and balance and a lot of other information, weather information, ATIS, and a lot of other things that they use to prepare the flight deck. We don't have that. We have to go manually get it from all the other sources. These guys have it in there, so they like to go ahead and get that set. And it also tells the company that the pilot is on the plane and he's pre-flighting the airplane. So let's run down what we set on that check. So we're going to go ahead and do our batteries. We're going to evaluate our electrical. We're happy because we've got external power. Everything is good. You know, on the PMDG, when I move my finger off the button, it stays on. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Check that our lights are on up here.
Engine 2, fire.
We're going to check our fire down here.
Engine 3, fire.
And then we can go ahead and hit the master warning and clear it. Make sure that it silences it. And we've got our level 3 alerts. And we can come up here and go ahead and disengage that. Alright. If we needed the APU, this would be a good time to go ahead and start it. We're going to come down and check our serviceables. So we have over our minimum 17 quarts, so we're all good there. We're going to check our config page. Everything looks good here. Our brake temperature's fine. Our tire pressures are fine. Everything looks good. We're going to check our status page. Everything looks good as expected. So we've got our galley bus off. Now in the freighter, the galley bus is disabled, so we would never have that light, and we're good on that. All the other ones are expected with what's going on, and we have nothing under mate. So if we did, we'd have to get maintenance out. So we're happy about that. All right. Now we're going to head up, and if we had a HUD, we would deploy the HUD. We don't on this aircraft, so we're going to go ahead and test our annunciator lights.
Overspeed.
And we're going to do something very similar to what we do on a normal flow. We're going to check all of our lights here. Notice we've already checked our fire lights on our handle, so we don't have those. We're going to check our lights here and come down.
Overspeed.
We're going to check our lights here and over and come down. Check our lights across.
Overspeed.
On the real aircraft, some of these don't light, but that's okay. We're going to check
Overspeed. Overspeed.
all of our lights here. Actually come across here, check our lights here, check all 8s, everything is good and expected. Check our lights here,
Overspeed.
come across and check all of our lights here. Come down, check all of our lights here, and everything is as expected.
Overspeed.
So we'll go ahead and cut that off. And, oh, by the way, while that all happened, it started our air system test. So we already knew that, right? So we're all happy there. Alright, at this point, if we had an EFB on these aircrafts, I actually have EFBs connected. They're actually got little suction cups to the window. They've got a ram mount. We'd be starting checking our EFB, but we don't have that, so we'll be okay. So, now we want to start our flows. And the way we do our flows, just like you saw me check the fire test, we come down, we come down, we come down, we go over, over, up, over, and down. You notice we're not checking this area, we're not checking this area. That's the first officer's job. So we are not doing that. So, get in here and we'll go ahead and start. Now, the freight version, we don't have this evac system. I'm assuming it's on the passenger versions. I don't know for sure, but we don't have it. I don't check it. So go ahead and start to align. Again, we see our cargo fire test happening, making sure we get our level 3s. Everybody's happy. Actually, let's do this. I was messing around earlier and had them go instant. We're going to go real time. There we go. Alright, so we've got those to nav. Test. Check for our gen bus faults. Good there. We're going to set our cargo temp as desired. Our FADIC mode switches are all blank. Our engine ignition is off. We're going to come up here and check our 3 handles that they're stowed properly and no low agents. Alright, because maintenance hasn't been around the aircraft, because we did the exterior check, we can go ahead and start our hydraulic systems check. And we should see the hydraulic pressure test come on here. And it won't tell us that it passed, but we know that it didn't fail because it didn't tell us it failed. Alright, we're going to go ahead and evaluate our electrical. Notice that these lights are out, so it is on auto. And we're going to go ahead and arm our emergency power. Econ should not be off if somebody was in here playing around, so now we're going to put our econ back on. Check everything on our fuel switches, they look good. We're going to come up here and check our APU. It all looks good. Now on the real aircraft there's going to be 2 more buttons right here, and there's a ground proximity warning override button and an RAAS override button, and we're going to check those so that they're supposed to be. We're going to check our yaw dampers, flap limiters, LSAS, all is good there. We're going to make sure our outflow valve is open and automatic. Anti-ice is set as we would expect it, and we're going to turn our defog off. Alright, now we're going to come down and we're going to look at our fuel and see that we have some fuel used here, but we haven't started up yet. Maybe maintenance is doing something, maybe something happened earlier, so we want to go ahead and reset that. So we just simply do a fuel used to 0. We also want to look and see, are there any engine max pointers on here? Maybe something happened in the last flight, it didn't get recorded, or maintenance needs to be aware of. We're not going to reset that. We're going to go ahead and look at that, and if we do have an issue, we're going to call maintenance and ask them about it. Make sure that that's as expected. Alright, So, set our lights as desired. We're going to turn. We see here that our emergency lights are disarmed, so we're going to go arm those. That extinguishes. We're going to hold our test button down until we receive emergency lights test pass. We're good there. No smoking, we're going to leave off, and seat belts go to auto. Set lights as desired, and we're good on the overhead. Moving down to the FCP, we're going to make sure that we're in inches, which we are, QF8, or QNH, which we want. We're going to go ahead and set our barometric pressure, which is 3007. So let's go ahead and set that guy. 3007. Check our minimums, radio altimeter, and we'd set this as appropriate, normally 200. Alright. Then we're going to set traffic and data, and the others as desired, depending on the pilot. We're in map mode, fine there. We're going to go ahead and check our ADFs, so we're going to turn 1 and 2 on, and then we're going to turn VOR 1 and 2 on. Yep. Alright, we're going to check that we're in IAS. Normally it'll be 250. We'll set this later after we do our pre-flight briefing, and set this as well. And then again, we stop here because this is the responsibility of the first officer. Alright, now we're going to move down and check how we want. We want our timer on. These unfortunately don't work, but we're going to check our floor. We're going to turn those on bright. We're going to check our pedals down here. Did the last pilot drop a Coke bottle? Did he drop something? Who knows what happened down in here? It's dark. We can't see. We want to make sure there's nothing down there that's going to get in our way. So we're going to check that. Turn that back off. All right, now we're going to check our oxygen mask. A couple things we're going to check here. Let me get to my page here that I want to be on. So we're going to make sure there's a dilution lever here, which is not simulated, that's at 100%. And we're also going to make sure that's in demand mode. So when we press this, we're going to actually get an X in this window. And if this is not set correctly, then oxygen is just going to continue to flow when we press this. So our mask is set correctly. So now we're going to check that it's coming out over our interphone. So we're going to make sure that our interphone is enabled, which usually that's up. This is a momentary switch, so we're going to push it and hold it. This is not simulated, by the way, but we're going to hold this on interphone, and at the same time we're going to press this button and this button. And at that point we should hear the oxygen flowing in the overhead speakers above our head, which means that it's set correctly. So we can go ahead and let go of those buttons and let go of the interphone button, and we're all happy there. Next, we're going to go to the EIS source switch, and we're going to make sure that it works in aux. Should have captain on aux, and DUs 1, 2, and 3 are still correct. Everything's good. Yep. So we're going to go back to 1. We're going to look and make sure our static air is in normal. And the pilot I was with says he always looks over and makes sure that the first officer is in normal as well, and he is. Alright, we're going to check our DUs. Normally this will say takeoff. In the PMDG they don't have that model quite correct, and that's okay. No taxi is here because we haven't aligned yet. That's okay. We come over here and we have a magnetic heading. We're good with that. We check the time on our clock. We're good with that. Don't see anything out of the ordinary here, and we're good. Go down and we're going to set ourselves in config mode, and we're going to go ahead and pull our handle out, and we get 4 red up there and all red on the display. So we're good there, and we're going to double check that we're set. Our center gear is not disabled and everything is happy here. We're going to run down and check our backup standby instruments. There's a bunch of different kinds of instruments here. Some are full analog, 2 instruments here. This one's combined and electronic, so we're going to go ahead and set it, what do we say, 3007, and get it set. Alright, we're not going to set anything here just yet. Check our stat stow switch is correct, and we're happy with that. We're going to run down here and we're going to check our warnings. Throw throttle 1 up all the way, full range, and we're going to check our full range here and take it back. And also we checked our fatigue bar. It's hard to see on here, but here's our fatigue bar, and we made sure that it hasn't been, don't know why I threw the throttles up, but make sure our fatigue bar that's right here has not been thrown. Alright, we're going to go ahead and set our dial-up flap to 10. On the real MD-11 you can get lower than that, but we're going to set to 10 right now. Alright, we're going to verify that this head is on 1, this is on 2, and this is on 3. We're happy with that. We're going to set our radio panel as desired. Radar, we can't do anything with in-op here, but we're not going to be able to do a test yet. And our transponder, when we got on the plane, it was likely already in TARA. So we may set our transponder, but we can't test it yet until we're aligned. So, and then we're going to come down and we're going to check that our trim's 0 and 0. So our rudder and aileron trim are both 0, 0. And we're going to come down and check our ADG handle is in as expected, and there's usually a little breakaway tie right there to make sure you actually really want to pull that. Alright. So at this point we're likely going to go ahead and work on our iris. We're going to come in here and we're going to double check our reference and aircraft status. We're going to make sure we are in an MD-11, our engines are what we expect, they match our flight plan, our active database is correct, and everything is as expected. We're going to go ahead and initialize our IRS. Now, I'm not going to go through all the settings for this just yet. That's going to be, we can do that in another video. But I just want to go ahead, that's a more complicated thing, but I want to go ahead and get some of this done so you guys can see. There we go. Okay, so we are aligned. Everything looks good up here. So while we're waiting, give me just a minute. Alright, anytime now, we can go ahead and do an above the line before start check. So we're waiting to push back. The plane's not loaded yet. We have not received our final weight and balance in ACARS. We're just kind of sipping on some coffee and waiting. So our first officer is going to go ahead and, our captain's asked for the before start checklist. First officer's pulled it out. Asked for aircraft log. It's been reviewed. Fuel quantity. .85.6, released with 85.6. Oxygen checked, and the first officer's checked. The IRS is aligned. Altimeters, I'm at 3007. First officer, and I'm going to look and make sure my backup's 3007. First officer's going to check 3007, which he's not right now, but he would be. Status page has been checked. Takeoff warnings, which I did with the throttles, had been checked, and radar has been checked. Alright, so we're ready to align. Alright, now that we're aligned, we can go ahead and do what he called the forgotten 5. So I'm just going to start right here at the bottom. but we need to check our transponders, and we're going to check both transponder 1 and 2. So we're in 2 right now.
TCAS test.
We're going to check TCAS.
TCAS test has.
Alright, we're going to change over to... I say we're going to change to transponder 1. There we go.
TCAS test. TCAS test has.
Alright, I'd now be doing my test on my weather system on both systems. There's 2 there. So that's 1, 2 of the Forgotten 5. Alright, I can now set my auto brake. Yep. So that's system 4. Or 3, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3. I can go ahead and turn my auxiliary pump 1 on. That's going to allow me to have brakes. Without that, I won't have hydraulic pressure and I won't be able to stop the airplane. Alright, so that's 4. And then the last one is a
glide slope.
Ground
Pull
proximity
up.
warning system. I'm only going to hold
Terrain,
that down
terrain.
for a second or 2.
Pull up.
If I hold it down too long, it's going to go through a really long test. And I don't want that. Alright, and that's basically it. So let's go ahead and call for... At this point, I'd be calling for... Yep, I closed it. Hang on. Alright, to finish our before start checklist, so I've got a couple more things to do. I've got my aux pump on. Alright, I'm going to be calling and asking if I can turn my beacon on because I want to do pushback. So they've told me, you know, I've got my my doors are going to be closed. Let's go ahead and do that. Waiting for it to close so I can arm it. Okay, the other thing that's going to happen is ACARS, they're going to send me my final weight and balance. Alright, so that's going to come in and I'm going to verify it. The plane's been loaded, everything's final. Once I receive that final weight and balance, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to start my APU. Now, I know you guys have seen starting the APU here, starting it here. That's no longer an acceptable method. The only acceptable method now for starting the APU is starting it up here and turning it off up here at this switch. They had some problems with the doors and a few other things, so they changed that procedure, and now this is the only acceptable method. So we're going to let that start up. Go ahead. See it starting up here. We're all good and happy. Again, this would all be done, but we're going to bypass that for now. Our Forgotten 5's been done. We're really just waiting, get that final weight and balance. And what he told me, you know, it's the order on some of these is a little bit different depending on when they get the weight and balance, what's going on with the aircraft. Have they got the DG ready to go? You know, a lot of different things are going on. So I'm going to go ahead, switch over to APU power, take external power off, and if I'm cold or hot, I can go ahead and turn my APU on now if I want to. And normally they're going to disconnect the power, but I'll go ahead and turn it off just for good measure. I've called to them I'm ready to push, and they're going to let me turn my beacon on. Okay, at this point, I'm sitting here and I am waiting for pushback. So let's kind of take a look at where we are. So everything is set. I can go ahead and turn my ignition on, get ready to go there as well. Go ahead and do before start, I'll call for below the line. So if I'm going to international customs forms, that means it's done silently, so the first officer knows they're on board. My aux pump is on. My parking brake is set or released as desired. My windshield, we're both going to check. Are they closed and locked? Is the clear view? Yep. The windows are closed. The clear views are closed. Everybody's happy. We both have to do that. The doors are closed because I don't have any alerts. My beacon is on and my ignition is A or B. So again, everything is set as desired, and I am sitting here waiting for pushback. So at some later point, we'll go into some more detail on setting up the FMS. We'll go into engine start and all that, but for now, that gives you an idea of how the aircraft is configured when you first walked in, how to do a safety check of the aircraft, how to do your initial flows and cockpit preparation, and how to get all the way until pushback. So I hope that was helpful. Again, I know I didn't get everything right. I'm sure some of you guys know more than I do. Put it in the comment section. We can either fix or annotate the video, or you guys can tell me what's wrong in another video, or however you guys want to do it. I like learning together with you guys, and so anything we can do to make this better, I'm certainly open to do. But I appreciate all the help that everyone has given me, and I hope you guys have found this useful. And let me know, do you want me to keep making these and do some more videos? If you do, let me know. So thanks a lot.